Hey everyone, it's 10 Types, and today I'm going to be making a tier list of every card from Night Wanderer / Shrouded Fable. Shrouded Fable is the international set, and they are similar. It is a mini set, but there are potentially some cards from Shrouded Fable that aren't in Night Wanderer, or vice versa. We'll see, but pretty much should be the same cards for the most part. And let's just hop right in. Also, this is the tier list. It was already made, so I will be sticking with these tiers. I decided they're a little weird. There's broken, solid, mid, bad, and I forgot what it does. So I do have the cards linked here. I'm looking at PokeBeach as well as Tier Maker, and I will be talking about the cards and showing them on screen. But yeah, I forgot what it does. It's probably mostly going to be pre-evolutions. So yeah. Yeah, I don't remember what Joltik does. But Galvantula is pretty interesting here, I guess. Also, one last thing about the tiers broken. The cards in broken aren't going to be like if someone says name a broken Pokemon TCG card, the cards in this tier are probably going to be much weaker than those cards, but still like pretty good cards. So that's kind of what that'll be. But Galvantula, pretty interesting. Here's a stage one. Its ability says if your opponent's active has any abilities, this Pokemon does 50 more to your opponent's active. So this will work with the technical machines. But the big thing is you do grass colorless, but if you have lightning, so essentially grass lightning, aka a reversal energy most likely, then because you cannot use new upper energy to pay this attack, but well, to get the benefit. So and then it does 80 plus 50 plus 50 more, hopefully. So you're going to be hitting 180 or 130, which is okay. I mean, it one shot Charizard EX, but that's pretty niche, and it's awkward. It's a stage one awkward energy type. If we had Zoroark, it would be justified, but we don't. And even if we did have Zoroark, I don't know if it's probably not the best option. So you can go in bad tier. Rowlet, don't really remember what it does. As I said, mostly pre-evolutions, but we do have a pre-evolution here, the Dartrix, which is pretty interesting. United Wings. United Wings is an attack, obviously, and it's an attack we've seen on now 4 different Pokemon, including Dartrix. We saw it on Murkrow, we saw it on um, Wattrel, we saw it on Flamigo, and now on Dartrix. Those are the three were all basics. This is a stage one, so that's a little weird. But if you don't know what this attack is, it's essentially the same as a Mad Party or Night March. It does 20 for each of your Pokemon in the discard with the United Wings as its attack. Dartrix itself as an attacker, it's not it's not that good. I mean, it's a stage one. It's not terrible. It's a stage one energy, so it is definitely payable, but the others are all basic, right? So you'd rather use those. Again, I mentioned Charizard DX. This does hit Charizard DX for weakness, so you could play a Rowlet, but probably not. That being said, I'd say it's solid. United Wings was like an okay deck, okay-ish, but this is, just extra damage. Of course, needing to get more Pokemon in the discard means you are more clunky, but it's certainly a nice upgrade to the deck. And yeah, I think it's really solid. I think that's the perfect tier for it to go in. Not broken, not that good. But I think it'll be all right. Decidueye has 2 attacks, but the main one here is going to be Strong Shot. For 1 grass, you do 170, but you have to discard a basic grass energy from your hand, because if you don't, then it doesn't do anything. So 170 for 1. I mean that's not bad. Again, one shot Charizard DX, but it's not that good. I'll put in bad. I will not be ordering the tiers either. I don't think. We'll see. But this and Galvantula are pretty similar power level. Tapu Bulu, you can maybe kind of sort of see it. It's a basic grass Pokemon, and it does 220 for 4. I don't remember what's HP is at 140. It is 140, and then it does 32 itself. This is like mid, I guess. It's pretty awkward because it's a lot of energy, but if you can pull it off, it's pretty good, right? 220 is a pretty good number to hit. Certainly 230 is useful in certain scenarios. If you're looking at, I immediately went to say Roaring Moon EX, but you do hit that for a weakness. So like some fire Pokemon, and there are some Pokemon at 230, but it's fine. Then there's 240. Raging Bolt EX has 240. So I do think that this card isn't very good right now, but in the future, if it has energy acceleration, it could be good. Also, you could put it in Lost Zone, but that's pretty awkward. I'd rather play Snorlax, which is all colorless, does less damage, but it's better in a number of scenarios. I mean, it's just easier to power up. So yeah, you could put this in Giratina V-Star Lost Zone, though. That's not a crazy option. So I think this card's I don't think it's that good, but it could see some play theoretically. Houndoom, I think does 130. Oh no, it does 100, and the defending Pokemon does 100 less. Yeah, I forgot what it does. So that's going in. I forgot what it does because it's not good. I mean, Reducing your opponent's damage next turn is theoretically good, but most likely they'll just switch. Or they might not even switch. They might just still knock you out because you only have 120 HP, which isn't the worst, but it's not very high. And then 100 damage is kind of awkward. I mean, it's not a lot of damage. It's awkward to power up. It's just not very good. So yeah. And then we got the Iron. What is this? Iron Moth. So this one it does I believe it walls ancient Pokemon, but damage from ancient Pokemon, which is interesting. I'll put it in mid, because I do think it's better than the ones in bad. But you could have it as a tech option in Firebox decks or decks with, yeah, I guess just calling them Firebox decks. That's very open-ended, but like Fire Arceus, really any Armrouge based deck you could put this in, and then you will be better against ancient based decks. But what exactly does that mean, right? Like Roaring Moon EX will hit through you with its one attack. And then like the Teal Mask Ogerpon EX deck that plays Raging Bull, or rather the Raging Bull EX deck that plays Teal Mask Ogerpon EX plays, Teal Mask Ogerpon EX, which is not an ancient Pokemon. And yeah, so there are like issues with this, but there are matches where this will literally just like auto win you the game. Your opponent won't be able to do anything about it, and you just win because you have this card. So it does have some potential value there, but it's pretty awkward to power up. Even in the decks that it is powerable, that you can power it up in, it's still a little awkward, and then its value is like not that good, but it's certainly a card that I could see seeing play. Do I expect it to? No, but it's not impossible. I think maybe it'll pop up once or twice. Horsey and Seadra, no idea what they do. Kingdra is weird, so it has two attacks. It's a stage 2 EX with 310 HP. The second attack is Hydro Pump, 50 more for each water energy attached to this Pokemon. You're looking at this, comparing it to Chien-Pao EX, similar damage outputs. Of course, this is a stage 2, but it has higher HP, doesn't discard the energy. It's different in a few ways. 50 for each water attached to this Pokemon. And then Royal Orders is a weird attack for 1 water. Put up to 3 water Pokemon from your discard pile onto your bench. That's really weird. By the way, this cannot put Palafin EX into play in standard. Theoretically, it couldn't expand it, but that's super hard. I was going to say with Hexamaniac, but I think that's banned, so with Garbodor. But this is like a weird Pokemon. I don't think it's bad. I'll put it in mid. I don't think it's going to see play, just being completely honest. You can also put it with Swim Freely. It's very much outclassed by Chien-Pao if you are pairing it with Excalibur. And then when Chien-Pao EX rotates, Excalibur will also rotate. So that is a bit of an issue for it. It's a stage 2. It's not a terrible card. There are some things like if, say, Mewtwo Mew, Tag Team GX, that was a card. If you're not familiar with it, it copies Pokemon and their attacks. It was a really interesting deck, in my opinion. But if you had something like that could copy this attack as essentially a basic, then I think that could be really good. But we don't have that or really anything like that right now. So yeah, right now I don't think it'll see any play, but I don't think it's a terrible card. It's outclassed essentially almost directly by Chien-Pao EX because that often does, or sometimes does more damage, but more importantly gets you the energy and is a basic. But I think EX has value and you could do Swim Freely. Next we have Weavile. This one's interesting. When I made a video about this card initially, I was like talking about this card, and then someone in the comments was like, "Yeah, so you compare this card with Weavile," and I was like, "What Weavile?" And they're like, "The one that you talked about in the video." So at the time, I forgot it, but it's an interesting card. 70 for 2 water. You discard all energy from this Pokemon. Your opponent's active is now paralyzed. There is a tool that I guess pairs with it, but this is not a bad card by any means. Pre-evolution is bad, I'm assuming. Yeah. Oh, you could stop him from retreating, but that's not that good. Weavile here is, I'm going to put in Sol. No, I'm going to put in mid, I guess. I am actually going to order the tiers here. No, I don't know. It'll go here. So anyways, it's mid because you can use it to paralyze your opponent over and over and then just stop them from doing much of anything. But there's a few issues. One, you need to get it powered up, which isn't necessarily a massive issue, but it's awkward. If you need Excalibur, that's a stage 2, and so that's a little awkward. When you're not getting that much. I mean, you're not obviously that much upside. You're getting knockouts, but over a long period of time. And then, of course, you need energies, and it's a bit of a mess. But then on top of that, also, yeah, it's like, I don't know, if your opponent breaks out of it, then they can they can potentially knock out. I don't know. They have a lot of targets to knock out. So being double evolutions where they're both single prizes, it's not good. But then also, your opponent can just switch out, right? So a lot of decks do run some switch style cards. When I'm saying switch style cards, I mean Switch, of course, itself, and then Switch card, Professor Terror scenario, Penny, Scoop Up, Cyclone, or Prime Catcher, or some combination of all those. A lot of lists run actually multiple copies, especially because of Snorlax. So that will be a bit of an issue for you. But yeah, I don't think it's going to see play, but it's not impossible if we get a good Weavile, which Weavile has gotten good cards historically. Then I think it could be really good. I don't remember what else we have now. I don't remember if we have anything that good, but it's mid. Then we got Reveroom EX. This one's pretty interesting. The Prevolution is it's metal, but Room EX is pretty interesting for one metal. You do 140 if you switched in, and then you have a second attack here. Oh, and you are Lightning Terra EX, so that's kind of interesting. But Speed Break, you do 250 for 3 metal. Discard this Pokemon and all cards attached to it. So it's like hit and run, I guess. It's really weird though. The second attack though seems super awkward. First attack seems all right, and one retreat is not that bad. I'm gonna put this Pokemon in solid. Reveroom has a few pretty solid cards in format. Nothing that good, nothing that really sees play, but they're pretty close to seeing play. So, there's the one, the engine one, the draw engine one. I guess I need to clarify because it's an engine Pokemon. But yeah, I think this card could end up seeing play. I actually like it paired with the Scizor, which I think is pretty solid right now. I don't think it's broken or amazing right now, but I think it's solid. And then paired with this other, what I describe as a solid attacker, is nice. You got that high HP and tankiness. Drowsy is bad, of course, and then Hypno. It says if your opponent attaches an energy to the Pokemon that you hit into, then their turn ends. But that's like super niche and not that good. We saw it on a basic. It was a little different, but it was similar. Essentially the same effect of its attack, and that did not see any play. So it's bad. Duskull does it just a pre-evolution, so I don't really know what it does. But then you have Dusclops and Dusknoir. Really interesting. Dusclops and Dusknoir with Cursed Bomb. Once on your turn, you may knock this Pokemon out, but then place either 5 damage counters with a stage 1 on one of your opponent's Pokemon, or 13 with a stage 2. That's really interesting for donk-based decks and some weird, like, funny things. I think it actually has really solid potential, so I would put it in solid. Fundamentally, either I think these are going to be in one of 3 categories. One, completely terrible. They'll just be like really bad. If you know Fortress EX, that card's, well, it's really bad because it essentially puts you down so much that you can't recover ever. It knocks itself out, but it gives up 2 prizes. And then they could end up being like weird and silly decks, which I think is probably what they're going to end up being, potentially as like donk decks, but maybe not. Donk is essentially benching your opponent out, running them out of bench Pokemon. Generally, it means quickly as well. And then lastly, they could be super broken. I don't think that's what's going to happen. I think it is possible that they end up being super broken, but I don't know. I don't think they'll end up, like, when the day's done, I don't think people are going to be like, those cards were solid. I think they'll either be here or here, but I'll put them in solid for now. Cresselia is pretty interesting as well. I guess it's attack your Crescent Purge 80, but you can put one of your FaceTime prizes face up and do 160. The interesting thing is like the prize flipping over is kind of a unique mechanic, not completely unique by any means, but it's kind of interesting, kind of weird, and does give you prize knowledge, but also your opponent prize knowledge. It does some weird things, but yeah. So this card isn't that good though. I mean, you could play it in like Gardevoir EX, where it's okay, but I'll just put it in mid, I guess. I think it won't see any play. But I don't know. I don't know who you'd play it in. It's not a particularly great card compared to other cards around it, but it's not a bad card if you don't like compared to others. Then I honestly don't remember what Sylveon does. Apparently, this is the flip a coin if head shuffle an opponent's bench Pokemon and all cards attached to it into their deck. Yeah, this card, it's going here. Croagunk, Toxicroak, I don't think this is good. Yeah, it's this is not terrible. It just went 80 to an active evolution. Can one-shot some stuff, but I forgot what it does, which is not a good sign. It's not like the worst card ever. If you're looking at like Zoroark Tech Pokemon, it's okay, but there are better ones. Then Blood Moon Ursaluna. This is not the EX, it's a single prize basic, and its ability says it's the same, I believe, as Glare and Zapdos from Evolving Skies. Once during your turn, when you play this Pokemon from your hand onto your bench, you can attach up to 2 basic fighting energy from your hand to this Pokemon. And Mudbite does 100 for fighting colorless, and 30 more for each damage counter on your opponent's active. This is weird. We've seen a lot of Pokemon that do more for each damage counter on your opponent's active, and this is weird. High base damage, moderately high multiplier. I mean, it's not super high, but it's okay. This is a weird card. Obviously, it can be used to finish off Pokemon, to like 2-shot them. You can ping them with stuff. I mentioned Dusclops and Dusknoir earlier. which one's the basic? Dusclops is the stage 1, and then Dustorm is the stage 2. I always forget that. And then you have some interesting combos here. You have Iron Valiant EX is probably the best one in my opinion, but it's not. I don't know. Blood Mirror Luna is kind of interesting. I'll put it in solid tier. Honestly, I have super mixed feelings about it, but right now I think solid's fine. You could play it, and you could play it in certain decks because it is kind of techable. I mean, you don't need to accelerate energy to it, but you do need a good chunk of fighting energy to it too. Well, you do accelerate, but you accelerate with its own ability. You don't need some other form, but you do need some fighting energies and ways to get those into your hand in addition to the Blood Mirror Saloon. And you do have ways. You have Lana's assistance. You have superior energy retrieval and stuff like that. But I think it's all right. Iron. No, what is this? Slitherwing. Slitherwing here, fighting basic ancient Pokemon. It does essentially one shots the one shots Miraidon. It one shots the Iron Hands EX and the Iron Thorn EX, which is okay. I mean, they're certainly not bad cards. So I'll put it in solid tier here. You could certainly tack this into a deck playing Fighting Energy like Lost Zone, some Lost Zone based decks. So I don't think it's a bad card, but I don't know. The Pokemon you're targeting are Pokemon you can probably beat anyways. I'll put it into mid tier. Next we have Zubat, we have Golbat, and then we have Crobat. This one's kind of interesting. It has an ability if you played a supporter card from your hand, Janine Secret Technique, a specific supporter card from your hand during a turn. You can draw till you have 8 cards. It has an attack 120 for 2 darkness, and it does poison, but instead of 1 poison counter or damage counter between turns, you do 2 damage from poison, but that's not that good. This card is bad. The Crobat, it's not good because it's an engine, but it's like if you know anything about Teal Mask Ogerpon EX or Zadu, especially Zadu, you need energy in hand to be, or Radiant Greninja as well. You need energy in hand, late game, to be able to use them. But you can get energy into hand easier than just this random supporter, which doesn't draw you cards anyway. So the supporter is not terrible, but it's we'll talk about it later. But yeah, don't play the Crobat. Next we have Absol. I forgot what this does. Bad Fall. Colorless. If you have at least 3 darkness energy in play, it does 70. That's not that good though. So that's gonna be going. I forgot what it does because I did forget what it does. And it's not that good. So yeah, Zorua, don't remember. Zoroark, pretty interesting for 2 colorless. You do 60 for each of your points, EX and V they have in play. This is weird. Like you really want to be if you're hitting 240 consistently with this or 220 with a double turbo energy, that's really good. Also, you can do 110 for 3 darkness, or 3 energy, but that's pretty bad. I didn't remember that attack, and yeah, it's not good. But Zoroark is pretty interesting here because, if you're hitting 180 or 160, that's not terrible. I mean, that's solid, but like if you look at the Diplin Thwacky deck, that's kind of what you're hitting. You're hitting usually a little more than that, though. You're hitting usually 200, that's the idea, but or more with damage buffs. But I think this card's okay. Of course, Zoroark Box was a thing for quite a while with the single prize Zoroark from Evolving Skies, which was like a deck that was focused on, of course, Zoroark, but it was a weird deck. So, and this is, it could go in a box style deck to counter decks with lots of V's and EXs. Yeah, and I think it's okay. I'm not a big fan of it though. I'll put it in mid, I guess. That's not the right card. I just took some random Beware. I guess it was here. So there we go. It's going in mid. Also one thing, if there are cards that I say I put in, I forgot what it does, but you think they are important, comment that down below because yeah, I'd be interested in talking about those at some point as well if you think they are relevant. And also subscribe because most of my audience is not subscribed, but I am doing daily content, so you will not miss out hopefully on content that you like. Even if you don't like something one day, the next day, I gotcha. So then we have. Let's see. Oh, we have Malamar. That's up next. Also, huge shout outs to the person who created this tier list. I mean, I don't know how long it took, but it's just convenient. It's in the same order as the PokeBeach article. They probably went down the PokeBeach article and just got all the cards, which is nice because now I don't have to do it. And the link to the tier list will be down below, so you can check that out. And then Malamar, though, if you played a certain supporter, a different one this time, it has literally no synergy with this card. But switching one of your opponent's bench Pokemon to the active and do 120 to that new Pokemon. This is weird. It's like Snipe kind of, and I actually think it's mid. I could see it being in solid. The supporter is just, it's not a draw supporter. It's like a disruption supporter, but it's not like the best disruption supporter. Like, I think Ares better just in general. This does have value. It has a lot of value in certain scenarios, but the supporter, but as a general supporter, it's terrible. Like, it doesn't draw you cards. It doesn't help with the attack other than you need to play it. And it isn't like super powerful disruption in specifically the early game. It's potentially really solid in the late game or in certain scenarios, but um, yeah. So if this was a better supporter to work with it, I'd put it higher, probably in solid, but it's not. Veltal's pretty interesting. Second attack is not terrible, but not that good. But Gnawing wins for 1 darkness. Put 2 damage counters on each of your opponent's Pokemon that has any damage counters on it. This is like, I think one of the Hisuian and Braviaries, it's a little worse, but it's a basic. And it does resist fighting, although it only has 120 HP. So this is going to go in solid, honestly. I think, being a basic attacker is always good. And no, it's going to go in mid. I like this card. I like Spread Decks. I think you compare it with Absol from Astral Radiance, which is another basic darkness attack with for 1 darkness energy. It does a spread-based attack. It does 10 to all your opponent's Pokemon, which is pretty solid, and it has another attack that's not bad. But the big thing is that they synergize pretty well together. You could do Spinda as well. That's actually probably better, but almost directly better. But anyways, Yveltal's pretty interesting here, but it's not that good, unfortunately, so it'll end up in the mid tier. Then we come to the 4 Darkness EXs. These are all pretty interesting. Okidogi EX, I'm actually going to skip for now because we need to talk about Janine's Secret Technique to talk about this card. We could talk about it within the context of the other 3, but we won't. Munkidori EX, though, its ability to skip a beat if this Pokemon is knocked out by damage from an opponent's attack. Well, you have Pekka EX in play, which is this one, but they don't have that much synergy. Your opponent takes 1 less prize card. This is kind of weird. Your attack is a 190 for 3. Can't use it again next turn. The stats are super mediocre, but then you are essentially a single prizer. So I'm going to put you in the solid tier. The Munkidori EX, it's not a bad card. It's a really weird card. It's not honestly that interesting. A few things to note about it, though. It's if you're knocked out by damage from an opponent's attack. We have that Pokemon in play. So, of course, your opponent can knock out Pekkarunt first, but then the bigger Pekkarunt EX. But the bigger thing is going to be that your opponent will be able to go and they will be able to, knock you out through damage counters or an effective attack or something like that, or poison or whatever, which is a little different. And then you will give up 2 prizes, so that's not good. And then, of course, if they turn off the ability, you'll also give up 2 prizes. That's not super likely, but it is possible. So you could cancel a clone or something. So, Munkidori EX is it's not great, but it's not terrible. Pheasantipty EX, this card's so good. Take advantage. It's its ability, which says if one of your Pokemon is knocked out during your opponent's last turn, you can draw 3 cards. You can't use more than 1 this ability per turn. Also, you do 100 snipe for 3 colorless, which is not bad. It's not that useful, but it's not bad. But yeah, the ability is super good. This card is going to see play in a lot of decks. 210 HP isn't the highest. It's I guess on the low end. It's not that low, but it's a little low. But it's not that low, so it's not that big of an issue. And I think Pheasantipty EX will be, I think it'll be a pretty solid card, and we'll definitely see a lot of play at any level. So, or like higher levels, for people who actually have the card. Like in live, this will see a lot of play. Then Pekrunt EX, we got, this is interesting, Irritating Burst for 2 darkness, also 90 HP, low. Not the lowest, but low. But for 2 darkness, 160 for each prize your opponent's taken. 60 for each prize your opponent's taken. That is not bad. It's not terrible. It's not great. It's okay. Then you have the ability to chain a command. Once during your turn, you may switch one of your bench darkness Pokemon other than a Pekrunt EX with your active, and then your new active is now poisoned. You can't use more than 1 this ability per turn either. No idea why that's there, but it is, I guess, so you can't reset effects of attacks instantly. But that seems so mediocre. Anyway, this is kind of interesting for a few things. There is a tool that this works with, but I'll mostly count that towards the tool. So the big thing for me is that you're able to switch your darkness Pokemon to the active, and it can be a basic or stage 1, but I'm looking at Charizard EX. Charizard EX is bad against Snorlax based decks or Mawile based decks because your opponent can trap Rotom V or whatever in the active, and then you lose. So This is a really good counter to that, and then your attack is also all right in other types of decks. I think this is pretty solid. I'll put in solid. I could put in broken, but it's not broken. Then we come to Genesag. This is interesting. Ace cancels your ability, and if it has a tool attached, your opponent can't play any ace spec cards from their hand. This will not turn off ace spec cards already in play, which is something to keep in mind. And if your opponent is using Lugia V-Star or something kind of like that, with Arc Yaps, which is the card that's important, with Legacy Energy, which is an ace spec, they can just grab it from their deck and put it into play, and this will not stop that. So because it's not from their hand, it's from their deck, and so that's a bit of a downside, but it's okay. I'm going to put it in mid, and I'll put it in solid. I think it will see some play here or there, competitive play, but it's not very interesting, to be honest. It's a pretty boring card. It's not that good of a card, but I do think it will see play. Just a little, not a ton. Hyper Roger EX, I forgot this card. As long as it's in the active, your opponent can't play stadiums. Oh, and then you can do 130 or 230 for 4. That's not that good. So yeah, this card, I forgot it, right? So Hackstress is pretty interesting. I don't entirely remember. I know its first attack, for when fighting, if your opponent's active as a special energy, it's instantly knocked out. There was a B drill with this essentially same attack that was 1 lower HP and 2 really solid, but that was different. It had a single strike style mustard or stance mustard. I don't remember exactly what the name is, but that card was super fun. That's the big thing. But it was really, allowed you to essentially play it without playing as a basic. It was kind of weird, but this doesn't have that, right? So you could run this in Rigid Draco. That's kind of fun, but of course you could also use this in just as its own as like attack option, but it's kind of awkward. Dragon Pulse is 230 for fighting metal, and you discard the top 3 cards of your deck. I think this is a Regidraco Pokemon. It's awkward on its own. What's the Hackstress? Is this any good? Oh no. Not terrible, but not good in its own right. Hackstress I'll put in bad. Yeah, it'll go in mid. That's fine. You got Cure. This card's so good. Anti-Plasma is your ability. If your opponent has a card with colorless in its name, in the discard, the attack cost of this Pokemon's Trifrost is 1 colorless. Or sorry, is 1 colorless instead. Instead of being water, water, metal, metal colorless, which is so bad on its own. Discard all energy from this Pokemon. It does 110 for each, to 3 of your opponent's Pokemon, which is a lot of them. And you don't apply weakness and resistance for bench Pokemon. Why it says that? I guess it always says that, but no one's weak to dragon, so this should, it could come into effect, I guess, but I don't think in standard. Anyways, Kyurem is it's pretty good, right? If your opponent's running a colorless, of course, the colorless card is Colress's Experiment. Well, there is a card called Colress, so if you're looking at GLC and Expanded, it actually becomes a really interesting card. But in Standard, it's not an interesting card. It's just really good against Lost Zone, which plays Colress's Experiment. So it is interesting in some contexts. There is a new Colress card as well, and so if everyone's running this Kyurem, no one's gonna play that card because this is like 110 to 3 your opponent's Pokemon. That's like just destroys them. Even if you are playing like some deck that has, I don't know, maybe for writing like Ogre Pond Box, I guess it doesn't really matter because all your Pokemon are immune to bench damage. But even if you are running Manaphy, it's not a great feeling to be just getting obliterated. Your active's gonna get obliterated. They're probably gonna gust up Manaphy and then knock out like a bunch of your Pokemon or something. But yeah, this card's really good. And then there is the Colress Experiment, the new Colress card as well, which is it's an alright supporter. So this is going in broken. This card's really good. Keep in mind it will not decrease the cost of technical machines, but whatever. Meowth and Persian. Yeah, I did not remember this card. It's I just glanced at it. It's nothing interesting at all. Forgot Eevee. It's evolved into Sylveon. Furfrou is not good. I don't remember exactly what it does, but it's not good. Beware is unfortunately also not good. Yeah, so now we come to the other cards, or the trainers. Yes, they're under special energies. Although we will talk about Okidogi with Janine Secret Technique. But let's talk about all the A-specs now. We got, what's this card? Dangerous Laser. An item. Your opponent's active is now burned and confused. This is not a good card because it's not a terrible card. It's an okay card, but for an A-spec, it's not a good card because, you look at the other A-specs, the best 4, in my opinion. Although you could argue that the one doesn't belong there. You could argue for a few of them, but Prime Catcher, really good at Gust. It's just really good on essentially every turn of the entire game in any deck. It's not like it's broken on every turn or the thing you want to do, but it has some value. And then there are turns when it just is perfect. It just wins you games. Then you come to Unfair Stamp. The best just pure draw slash. I mean, the only draw a spec, I guess, kind of. And then it's heavy disruption. It's just like the best disruption in the game because it can turn. I don't know. As soon as your opponent knocks out one of your Pokemon, you just destroy their hand because it's down to two. And then you also have Legacy Energy. It just opens up so many insane options for Lugia specifically, but it's really good in, I mean, any deck. And then you have Secret Box. Secret Box is just bailout, turns any hand into the perfect hand, essentially. Again, you do need 3 cards to discard. I know a lot of people mention that as the reason why it's bad, but it's not like you can't pay that, and it's not like it's not worth it, because it certainly is. So all 4 of those have insane value, and so this card needs to compete with them. But then you look at the other aspects. You look at New Upper Energy, which has good value in Dragapult. You have um, Hyper Aroma, I think it's the one, which has good value in like Frostlass. You have the Ancient Future ones, which aren't that good, but they're still probably better than this. So this is essentially, you look at it as Confusion. Does that have value? It's a little value, but not that much. Burned is the bigger thing, and that's essentially an extra 20 damage. But like, there are cards like Defiance Band and Choice Belt and the Maximum Belt, and Maximum Belt sees play, and you know, like they all see some play, but they're not that good. So and this does less. So this card isn't very good. Is what I'm saying. A lot of people are like, yeah, it has value, and it has value. It's an A spec. All A specs have some value, but it's not good. So it's bad. We'll see play. I might see a little play here or there, and maybe we'll see some cards that work with it. But right now, it's not that good. Pokevital A is interesting, I guess. Heal 150 from one of your Pokemon as just an item, but it can't be recovered from the discard into your hand or deck, meaning that you cannot. Oh, and also I believe the other 8 spec, the Stadium, cannot be recovered from the discard into the deck. And so this cannot be gotten with Pokestop, which is kind of annoying, but not that important. But yeah, this card isn't that good. I will put it in mid. I think there's a chance you'll see play. It can force 2 shots into 3 shots. That's kind of what you're looking for. Which is, that's value. Getting an extra turn can certainly win you a game, but will it? I'm not sure. So yeah, I'm gonna say this is a pretty mid card for an ace spec right there, held to a higher standard. The neutral center is kind of interesting. Where is it here? So it's a Stadium, prevent all damage done to Pokemon that don't have rule boxes from your opponent's Pokemon EX or V, which are most rule boxes in the current standard format. So this is all right. Keep in mind that certain Pokemon can still hit through this. You're looking at like Giratina V, Roymoon EX. Wait, what's it? Damage. Yeah, damage. So effects will go through. So like Roymoon EX is instant knockout, and Cornerstone Mask Ogre EX. Things like that do have attacks that either hit through effects of attacks or just are effects of attacks themselves. So, that won't like stop things. But the big thing here is that will your opponent bump it? And if they bump it, then you like get almost no value out of it, depending what your opponent has to give up to bump it. Or if they don't bump it, you might just be able to win the game. Or in a certain matchup, it won't do anything. I will put it in solid. I think there's a potential for this card to be like super broken, but I think most of the time it will be pretty bad. So it could literally go in any tier, which is kind of weird. It's kind of like the Dustor and Dustlop. So yeah, that's fine. Nightly Stretcher is next up, and this card is pretty solid. It's an item. Either put a Pokemon from discard into your hand or a base Genji from discard into your hand. And this card, also, sorry, I'm really tired. I'm not super tired, but I'm tired. This card's good. It's I think it's gonna be a staple in like a lot of decks. I mean, you look at Ordinary Rod or Super Rod, which is like Ordinary Rod, and that card is a staple. It's one of the best cards in the game, or at least most played cards in the game. And this is similar. It doesn't recover as many cards, but they go straight to your hand, which can be much better at times and can be much worse at times. But I think it'll be really solid. Oftentimes, one thing I think people don't understand, recovering 3 cards versus especially cards of a certain type versus recovering 1 card. Recovering 3 cards is not 3 times as good as recovering 1 card, which is interesting to think about. And I think a lot of people, that doesn't make sense, but it's generally true. Recovering that first card has more value than recovering the second card, which has more value than recovering the third card, usually, because, which isn't always true. I mean, there are times when you need like a combo, so that's not really true. But most of the time, there's a card you really need, and then a card you need a little less, and then a card you need a little less than that. So, like usually use Super Rod to get, a little more value out of I don't know. If you're digging for energy, you get higher chance of getting that or something like that. But Night Stretcher, long story short, it'll be pretty good. It'll see some play. I think it might see a lot of high level play. Super Rod may rotate before this does. Currently it will, but I'm pretty sure. But it might get reprinted or it might get a like ordinary red back or something. But right now it's pretty good. Is it like broken? It's not broken in the traditional sense, but it's very good. It very well may be the best card from the set. Biting Mochi is a really interesting card. If your active is poisoned, you do 40 more to your opponent's active before weakness and resistance, like normal for damage buffing or damage changing tools on the Pokemon that are it's like attacking. So this is interesting because like how do you poison yourself? But then Janine's Secret Technique will do that, and then Pekron EX will also do that. And I'm looking at Charizard EX. Charizard EX struggles to hit certain damage numbers, but this will like increase it. Charizard EX is one of the decks that does play damage buff amounts. Charizard EX is not the best deck in the game right now either. It's like good, but it's not the best. So yeah, I mean Biting Mochi is I think it's a pretty good card. I'm gonna put it in solid. We'll see. It might end up being really bad and not see any play, or it might be really solid and broken. I don't think it's going to be like broken, but I think it could end up in solid tier. I like it. Then we have Power Hourglass, which is a weird name, but at the end of your turn, if the Pokemon this card is attached to is in the active, you can put a basic energy from your hand, or sorry, from your discard pile to that Pokemon. So you can accelerate, but it's kind of weird. This is useful with the Weavile we mentioned earlier. And it's useful in a few scenarios, but it's pretty niche. I'm going to put it in bad. Is it like a terrible card? I don't know. Actually, no, I'll put it in mid because turn one going first, you can end your turn with this attached and accelerate energy, which could have value and could be great in certain scenarios. So it's not a bad card, but it's pretty niche, but it could see high level play. But it's not that good of a card. I think Clovis's Tenacity is an interesting card as a supporter. Again, I mentioned Kira, which, well, counters this. So search your deck though for a stadium and an energy card. This is real, and put them into your hand and shuffle your deck. This is, if you're familiar with the card Guzman Hala, this is similar. It's a little different. Doesn't get a tool, but you don't discard two cards. But for standard format, this card is good, I guess. I mean, it depends, right? Do you need like how much value do you have off of a stadium or special energy? If you get super high value, this is insane. But if you don't, it's not that good, right? So this is a weird card to talk about. Because like how much value you're getting off of those cards. Talking about special energies, we have Luminous Energy, Reversal Energy, Double Turbo Energy, which is probably the best one. We have a bunch of colorless energies that do some effects, but nothing like insane. Gift Energy is, in my opinion, probably the best of those, but Mist Energy is pretty good. Jet Energy is pretty good as well, but those are solid. And then the stadiums, like, what are you looking for? I don't know. Artizone's good. That's the best one, I think. But I could be forgetting some other really good stadiums. But Colossus that are currently out. So Colossus Tenacity, though, I think is a really good card. Also, there is in the next main set, Stellar Crown, I believe. It's the one with the Trap Ghost, which is that card is like, or the deck is insane, and this card support is going to be so good in that deck, I think, unless everyone's playing Kyurem, in which case this card will not be so good because, well, you could play Mana Feast. You could even run double Mana Feast, but it's a little risky. So Colossus Tenacity, though, I think I'm going to put in Broken. I've convinced myself this card's, no, it'll go in Solid. I think it's really good, like probably better than all the other cards in this tier for the most part, but it's really solid. Then we come to Janine's Secret Technique. I've been talking about this card all video. Is it that good? Well, let's talk about it. Choose up to 2 of your Darkness Pokemon in play. For each of those Pokemon, search your deck for a basic Darkness energy and attach it to that Pokemon. If you do, if you attach an energy from your deck to your active, that Pokemon is now poisoned, which seems bad, but 1, it activates Biting Mochi, and 2, Okidogi EX, which we'll talk about. Outside of Okidogi EX, this card's solid. I mean, I'll put in mid. I'm looking at like what Darkness Pokemon are good. There's 2 or there are 3, depending how you count them. You have Charizard EX, of course, great card, but also not Darkness Energy. It's Fire Energy, and it accelerates it, so that's not so good. But then you have the Roaring Moon EX and Single Price Roaring Moon that are grouped together. So yeah, you use Dark Patch to accelerate Darkness Energy. Then use Professor Sada's Vitality, which is like better by like most of the time. So because it draws cards. So I don't think this card's super good in the current meta. I think it's kind of useless, but with Okidogi EX, it could be good. So we'll talk about that now. Of course, it is an EX, a basic Darkness Pokemon with 250 HP. High HP, but you are going to poison yourself. So Yeah, that'll be ticking down a little. But Poison Muscle, it's an attack that can power up the second attack, but it's an attack, right? So it's gonna end your turn. So not ideal. But Crazy Chain here, you do for Darkness Colorless 130, but if it's poison, you do 260. 260 is good. Is it broken? It's not broken, right? It's solid, but you could be doing more. You'd like more. Um, then you look at Binding Mochi, you're doing 40 more. So then you're hitting 300. That's good. And then you could be using Brew Bonnet to poison. So you could be hitting, you poisoning your opponent's active as well. And so you can use the Stadium and the Stadium Dangerous Jungle, I think is what it's called. And Radiant Hisuian Sneasler to increase damage to your opponent's active through poison. And then you can also use. No, yeah, I think those are the ways. So those are pretty solid ways though. So you can use that, and then you can just start potentially one-shotting a lot of different Pokemon. I think this card's solid. I don't think it's a great card, but it's a pretty interesting one. Then we have Cassiopeia's, what is it? Oh, no, just Cassiopeia. Supporter, you can only use this if it's the last card in the hand. Search your deck for up to 2 cards and put them into your hand, then shuffle your deck. This is weird. I guess it's good for stage 2s. If you're familiar with the card Penny, um, Peony, yeah, and then this is Cassiopeia. So Peony, that discarded 2 cards, or no, sorry, discarded your whole hand, search for 2 trainers. But this is kind of similar, can be used to set up combos and stuff like that. And of course, you're down to a 0 card hand. So ideally, you draw out of that 0 card hand because 0 cards is, well, it's not a lot, it's none. So I think Cassiopeia is interesting. It's a card that I like. I was a big fan of Mustard, which is they're 2 cards, but you can only play them if they're the last card in your hand. They were a bit more complicated. I mentioned Beedrill, and so they essentially accelerated Pokemon and drew a bunch of cards. But I think Cassiopeia will see a little play, and I think it's a solid card. It's a weird card, but a solid card. Then we have 06 Plan, and this card is an interesting one. It's paired with Malamar. Oh, Janine Secret Techniques paired with Crobat, which I mentioned earlier, but they don't really have much synergy. 06 Plan has no synergy with Malamar. It says your opponent discards cards from their hand until they have 3 in hand. Wow, that can force him to discard a lot of cards. So let's take a look at this card. Compare it to Hand Trimmer. Each player discards down to 5 cards in hand. That's an item, though, so much easier to use. But then this is much less, right? Like 3 is less than 5, but much more impactful because you're going to force them to probably discard some cards that they really need, especially if they have a bigger hand. So I think Zoro's Explain is a pretty solid card because it will force your opponent to discard important cards, but also it obviously doesn't improve your anything for you. It just discards cards from your opponent's hand. It doesn't draw your cards or set up or anything. So that's a bit awkward. I'm going to put it in mid. I think it will end up seeing some play, but I don't think it's that good of a card. It's control is pretty good right now with Snorlax and with Mawile and Pidgeot, or I guess I say Mawile, but a lot of people are playing Wellspring Master Ogre Upon EX. It's very similar to Mawile. It's more or less the same thing. You need double Turbo Energy and Wellspring Master Ogre Upon EX to repeatedly use it because anyway, that's for another day. But this card I think is really solid. I mean, not that good. I think it's mid. I think it has the potential to be really solid. I think a lot of people will think it's really solid, but I'm going to put it in mid. Lastly, we talked about Neutral Center, so we'll talk about Nighttime Academy. Really interesting stadium here. Once during your turn, each player may put a card from the hand on top of their deck, or the player's turn may put a card from the hand on top of their deck. That's really interesting. There is one issue, however, and it's really solid. It's a really good effect. Not broken by any means, but really solid. But both players can use it and get benefit from it, most likely. So it's a bit of a weird card. You compare it to a Rangaroo from Sword and Shield. That essentially doesn't affect how many cards you've drawn, or it'll essentially draw you an extra card. It doesn't draw you an extra card. So you can't use this just randomly, because then you'll keep drawing the same card over and over again. But I do think it's an okay card. I'll put it in mid as well, because it has a really solid value, Iono protection, and it does a few things. But it's a pretty interesting card and one I do like, but obviously it helps your opponent. It's a stadium, that's what they do. But anyways, that's all for today's video. I hope you enjoyed. Consider liking, subscribing, hitting the bell, all that good stuff. And as always, I'm excited to see you in the next video.